Hey guys, welcome to group chat. It's me alone, but don't worry, just for the intro. Anand's going to hop in and do some news with me. Then Anand and Dee did a really great interview with Ian Rogers, the podcast's favorite guest. Also, DJ Skee jumped in, which is really great. But Ian Rogers, here's what I'll say. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the when Anand hops on. But if you are down and out about your crypto or NFT holdings or potential future, I think Ian Rogers has a little ray of sunshine for you. So we have that interview with Ian Rogers, and then we're talking a little bit about news. You know, unfortunately, we have to talk about the terrible tragedy that happened in Texas. We're going to go over that first. And then we're going to talk about, there's a couple little business pieces of news, some stuff going on at some big tech companies with their board of directors. And then everybody's favorite entrepreneur has a brand new business venture. And he's raising big money. So might be the next big thing to keep an eye on. We got a good episode. Let's get into it.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, group chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
Hey, Anand.
What's going on?
How are you, man?
You know, I think like a lot of people, a little somber.
A little heavy, huh?
Yeah, wasn't a great week for anyone.
No.
And I think there's no silver lining.
There's zero.
And all there is just, more lack of hope and lack of promise that anything's going to be solved. So, it's a pretty shitty week. And I think everyone knows what we're talking about. The Texas massacre, the school where 19 children were killed.
Yeah.
2 adults.
Looks like on social media, a man who was the husband of one of the teachers died of a heart attack today. Did you see that?
I saw that too. And
that's pretty devastating.
You see the outrage, you see everything. And it's just sad because we know structurally, nothing's going to change.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean we have to stop talking about it. I think we have to talk about it even more because, these things it's the only way you'll ever get change ever in society. So, you have 85% of the country is in favor of universal background checks.
Yeah.
Yet Congress won't pass that. And this is purely political. It's divided right down the line, Republicans versus Democrats.
And just so that we're clear, it's because, am I correct in thinking, it's because the gun lobbies pay so much to the Republican Party, and that's why they do it.
I mean, that's an element of it. I also think, I don't know if guns are as big of an issue. Like in Texas, if you were to poll today, I'm curious where people would stand. Would they want, they would like, where do they draw the line?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I'm guessing. Keep going.
Yeah, no, in theory, people will be like, yeah, of course we should have universal background checks. Of course we should ban assault rifles.
Yeah.
But they're electing officials that clearly have made it their political platform to not do such things. Yeah. So where's the disconnect?
I think that also that you want to know the other thing is that I think, and this is only getting worse, is that the politicians have to fall into a party is part of the problem. And those parties are only getting more and more polarized. But it's like, is there even a good option of someone, let's just say running for governor of Texas, that says, I want to keep all your Texas shit, and keep all that, but I do want some common sense gun laws. And I do, I feel like people, they just, because you have to represent your party and they do that to the extreme, like there's not even options. Like even us, we talk all the time about how, yes, we're Democrats, but we feel less and less like connected to that party. And there's more and more things that don't make sense. There's just not really anyone competent talking about the middle at all.
Yeah, no, and the problem I have with the Republican senators that are talking today and yesterday post the tragedy is they're absolute cowards. Ted Cruz was in an interview today.
I mean, he's a joke.
And they asked him, like, isn't today the day we should start talking about gun reform laws? And he said, all you want to do is make it about politics. It's like, yeah, I mean, we have to reform gun laws so fucking kids can go to school and not be worried about getting slaughtered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have the NRA conference in 2 days in Houston. And did you see they are banning guns from
their own conference?
Their own conference. Only been done once before when Vice President Pence spoke in recent times. So my point is, these guys are such full of shit. Isn't the argument more guns is better?
Yeah.
Right? That's the argument.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
So why does former President Trump, need to be in an arena where guns are banned? Their argument falls flat right there.
It makes because it's not based on anything. This is the thing that I think is just, I don't know what happens here, but I do think that people are getting completely over the bullshit, like on all sides when it comes to regular people. And like, none of it has anything to do with what's actually good for people or what actually makes children safer, or it has nothing to do with any of that. It's all just politics and money. And I think that's more exposed than ever. I don't know if I don't still see any results that are like on the precipice, but I feel like people are so fed up because it's so clear how much of this shit is just bullshit. And really, to be honest, there's so much of it being exposed on both sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, here's my issue is that the people that refuse to talk about gun reform laws always have an excuse. So the excuse that people are deflecting on and not talking about the source problem that an 18-year-old can, on his birthday, go pick up an assault rifle with no background check, with literally no friction. It's easier for him to get an assault rifle to get on a MetaMask and buy a fucking NFT.
I mean, so much easier. It's insanity. I don't know how to fucking get on a MetaMask and buy an NFT. So
that's the source problem. And then you see people complain, oh, the police didn't do enough. Have you seen like those reports? I saw
those like headlines, but I didn't even know what they were saying.
They said the police didn't go in fast enough. They didn't let the parents go in. But like, let's be clear. A police officer in Uvalde, Texas isn't militarily trained for this instance. It's not like you have SEAL Team 6 like not knowing
what's
what to
crazy
do.
Is that you need SEAL Team 6. That's what's crazy is that like there's a group of police officers that are scared of what an 18-year-old can do by running to the store and grabbing that level of a gun.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If they all had AR-15s and he had a handgun, it would have been a different story.
Right. And every one of these mass shootings of recent time, Orlando, San Bernardino, Vegas, Buffalo, all of them, all AR-15s, all assault rifles, because they know like, hey, I can easily get one and this is the more deadly option.
It's like, look, I know we talked about it one time because I know that you haven't, you're not a big gun guy, but like if you go shoot guns, the difference between a handgun and an AR-15 is fucking wild. And the fact that an 18-year-old who's sounds like been relatively vocal online or with his friends or whatever can just run to a store and grab one of those the day after his 18th birthday is like, it's just wild. And the fact that you can own something so quickly that the police are scared to enter and to engage you because it's that dangerous of a weapon. I also saw, I don't know if this is totally accurate or not, so apologies if it's not, but I saw that there's some sort of like training or registration or test or something that you have to pass in order to go hunting in Texas. So you need actually less to buy the gun and then go, walk into a school with it than you do to go hunt animals that are legal to hunt. Like it makes zero sense.
And the Republican Party just the Republican senators that refuse to vote on any of these laws, they just go quiet in these times. They just wait for the next news story to happen, and then they move on to that. Like we haven't heard from Mitch McConnell to say why we're not banning assault rifles or universal background check. I hate guns. I've never shot a gun. I probably never will.
Yeah.
Go fucking hunt. I don't give a shit. If you think you're Rambo at home and you can protect your home because you are so good at you're so well trained, if an intruder comes, go for it. Have a field day. I don't give a shit about those guns. It's the guns that don't need to be on this, like, so easily purchased.
Yeah. It's absolutely absurd. It's just like, I feel like people are, I don't know, man. It feels like all of us, I guess we're all guilty of, because it's kind of like, what can you do? But, Sandy Hook happened however long ago. That was a very long time ago. And that was a terrible tragedy. And I just think you kind of like, the time passes and there's almost this thought of like I also think we had 2 years off of these news stories because no one was at school. So at least you didn't hear these tragic stories. And then just when it happens again, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, we didn't solve this yet. Like, it's still this. And like you're saying, all the responses still are just nothing. And there's like, I don't know. I hate to say like like we didn't do anything for the last decade since, the last child, one of these or whenever the last one was. But it's like, I think you almost also kind of, it's so absurd that nothing gets done that you kind of just like assume it wouldn't happen again or something would be solved or, you know what I'm saying?
Think about how flawed this argument is, because I've heard this argument too. Well, only 10% of gun deaths are from assault rifle. It's like, who cares? So we don't want to solve that 10%?
Yeah.
Like, let's solve the 10%. I understand handguns are the majority of gun deaths, but if you can stop mass shootings with a simple piece of legislation, why aren't we doing that?
That's also a very faulty piece of data. Like, I would love to see the breakdown of like, I would guess majority of suicides are with handguns.
Right.
That's a large number. Mm-hmm. I would guess a large number of like accidental shootings in homes, kids grabbing the gun on accident, shooting another kid. I would guess those are a lot of, but like anytime someone wants to go cause mass murder, it is always an assault rifle. Yep. So my point is, I'm not saying suicides aren't bad or any of that, but you get my point. It's like, okay, why don't we start at the top then? Why don't we start at the worst thing? Like, I'll give you an example. Let's just say city buses were just crashing and killing everyone on board left and right. Even if you added up the amount of people that died on a city bus, and it was still more in cars, you would get rid of the city buses right away. Because these things are wiping out 20, 30 people at a time. You would instantly get rid of that and say, oh, this small portion, we can get rid of a large number. This is great. You wouldn't say, well, cars are actually, let's keep the buses running. It's actually cars.
It's same with self-driving vehicles. Every time you hear there's one like incident, it gets pushed back another 5 or 10 years till we make sure that these self-driving cars have zero incidents.
Same thing with nuclear power, not to go full left field. But you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, about how when it comes to environment, climate change and all that, nuclear power is a great thing. But, we had some disasters and we just don't touch it. We don't touch it. We don't try to evolve it. We stay away from it. And look, I totally get that way of thinking. But why do we just allow? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just one thing, guns, which there's solvable like things that would prevent deaths, period, if we just had minor restrictions and everyone can still, no one's asking to overturn the Second Amendment.
No, not even close. Not even
this isn't like universal background checks, banning assault rifles, gun buyback programs for assault rifles that are already in the streets. Like, these are like really basic solutions that would prevent deaths.
Like, I wonder why we make people wear seatbelts. Like, why is that? Is that because
insurance companies remove all seatbelts? Remove them all.
Like, what's the real reason? It doesn't make sense because we're never just looking out for people's lives. So is that like an insurance company play? Like, why? It's so wild to me that, we're talking about fucking kids here.
Yep.
Like, you're talking about fourth graders or whatever age these kids were. It's not there's no way to overlook it.
Yep.
And you just don't hear. Oh, it's so wild. Like I said, I don't know what happens. I actually think that unfortunately it adds to a bigger problem down the road. But I do notice that like people are just so sick of the bullshit. And I have to believe that the amount of people that think like there should be no background checks and we should just keep the assault rifles flowing. I have a feeling that list is actually really small. Like of people who, other than the like slippery slope argument, which is silly here. Like I think, I mean, obviously they've done polls, 80% or whatever want common sense gun laws. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are. Another one. So these stories are just absolutely tragic. And I don't know. I mean, you would hope something happens, but I don't see any even glimmer of change on the horizon.
I agree.
Okay. Well, I hate that these stories come up and these are the things we have to talk about. But that being said, we do have an interview today.
Yeah.
We have our friend Ian Rogers, who is, I would say Group Chat's favorite guest. What are we talking about?
Talking about crypto, the metaverse, Ledger, and he's
Is
fresh
he positive?
off of,
Does he have an optimistic
oh
outlook?
yeah, it's if you need some kind
good.
of reinforcement on crypto,
This is your episode.
This is the interview, and DJ Skee joined us. On top of that, yeah.
What's he up to?
Ian's like, hey, you're in the neighborhood, come by. So he jumped on the pod. He wrote a metaverse book as well in the last kind of 18 months.
Amazing.
We're actually going to talk about that in another interview. So we did 2 interviews. We're releasing one right now.
Wow. Okay.
But he was part of the crypto VeeCon Web3 kind of hype, and it bullish. Everyone's bullish.
Bullish. Wow. Okay. So here we go. If you just lost everything in your crypto and NFT accounts, here's a little ray of sunshine for you in the form of Ian Rogers. Let's get into it.
All right, everybody. We have a special episode. Our good friend Ian Rogers is in town from Paris. And of course, an old friend, DJ Skee. What up, man?
How are you, brother?
So you guys, this is perfect because I didn't know Skee was coming. Ian said you may, which is awesome. You guys are both fresh off of VeeCon.
Special VeeCon.
What was that like? I saw like all these like heartwarming posts that people were like, it changed my life. I was like,
the Bobby Hundreds post about it was dead on. He really captured it well, which is that, on one hand, and I felt this going there, I was like, wow, is this a weird time to be going? Gary sold these passes like a year ago, basically, right? Yeah. And now here he's getting, 10,000 people plus into an arena, which by the way is a weird thing anyway. Like this is not like, a little
it's a big
event.
venue.
And I didn't know. Look, I toured in the 90s with the Beastie Boys in arenas, so I know like how to set up these arenas and how inhospitable they are to something like this. You know. So as I was going, I was like, "What is this going to be like?" I have no idea, and I'm nervous, thinking, "Okay, it's a shitty time in the market. Like, is it bad timing? Is an arena really the place to do this?" But I mean, like I always say, don't bet against Gary, right? In the music business, we always said, don't bet against Jimmy, but don't bet against Gary. Like it was, first of all, it worked in the arena. It was kind of like a county fair, but in a cleaner environment. You know what I mean? Instead of it being like
sick
in a dust bowl, it was, there was stuff everywhere. Like Ledger had our little area, Coinbase had their little area, Boardroom TV had their little area. Down on the floor, there was like, games and food trucks, and in addition to the talk. And then there was this Ferris wheel that I was joking was the Tim Ferris wheel, and maybe he was just going to talk in circles all day. But they did it really well. And, it felt a little like stepping into the future. Like I always say that like my job in my life feels a little like living in the future, because as someone said that, the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So going to VeeCon was like going to a place where the future was evenly distributed. Right? Like everybody in the room is excited about this like future of digital assets, and in some way or another, but also in a way that's not like going to Bitcoin Miami or even ETHCC in Paris, which is sort of like the financialization of everything. Like I went to the crypto finance conference back in January, and that's a really different vibe. This was much more like Comic-Con.
Yeah.
It was more like all these people who are together around the excitement of the intersection of culture and digital assets. And it was cool as hell. Like I'd left there like bullish. You know what I mean? Like, okay, corrections are good. Corrections are good. Consolidation is good. Popping the bubble of a bunch of like get rich quick schemes is fucking good. Making everybody like get the stars out of their eyes and go, no, I'm really going to do my research.
Yeah.
Right. When people say algorithmic stablecoins are dangerous, I'm actually going to read up on that shit and just instead of saying like, no, my friend told me it was cool. Like all of that stuff is actually really good and really healthy. But like, this is real and unstoppable. I was with my daughter's grandfather at a piano recital on Sunday, and he, was asking me about like, he's like, dude, I don't understand what you do. And I never have. And I still don't. Right. And, I said, look, remember, the late 90s when the internet was both overhyped and unquestionably, inevitably the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's where we are. We're right there again. Shit is overhyped, and it's also unquestionably, inevitably the future, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of like correct your level of bullishness, but being generally bullish is still the right direction.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this new wave is that I would say post 2018 has attracted a much different type of person compared to early crypto 2008 to
for sure
2017. And I think a lot of it is people are looking for community, and I'm sure the pandemic supercharged that because they're sitting at home like, where do I belong? You can get on Discord chat for whatever protocol, how to figure out how to play the crypto markets, but it's not people that you would have expected to be on the forefront of technology this time around.
That was what was cool about VeeCon is it was definitely not. It was like being at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
From like when you look around you, who do you see? And it was definitely like Gary V fanatics, by the way. Skee was DJing on.
It was insane. The opening party. I mean, I remember pulling up to the venue, which is the park outside the stadium, and there was a line that had to be 2 hours long, like literally wrapped like multiple blocks around multiple times, and it was just insane seeing the enthusiasm. And is like Ian said, right? Like, never bet against Gary. If you think about it, like everything about it is so stupid and it shouldn't have succeeded. It's a conference about one person, right? In a time when a market is completely collapsed.
Meltdown.
And it's in a giant stadium
in
that's
Minnesota,
made for 70,000 people in Minnesota. But it's all of those things.
Was it in the Target Arena?
No, it's in the US Bank Stadium, football stadium.
Geez.
Target Arena is like where we played on the Beastie Boys tours in the 90s, but this was like a big, beautiful like US Bank.
Target Center's
really
15,000 people.
So what was the purpose of the conference?
It was Web3. I think it was the first true like Web3 conference. Like that's what it felt like. Obviously, it's for like Gary's fanatics and holders of the of VFriends passes. But it's interesting because when you saw that, like Gary was responsible for onboarding such an entire like new generation to Web3, which is what's needed, and that's why we need more people like him and more people doing things like that. Because even early on, he was like, "All right, here's what you need to do." Set aside, you get your own wallet. You can get a MetaMask here. Here's how you buy ETH. Here's how you transfer it. Here's how you can mint. Here's how you can set that up. And these people all became like super bullish in crypto and helped like prop up a lot of the scene, right? Like just onboarding that many new users. But in terms of vibes and feel, I mean, it was so interesting. And I think Minneapolis was a great city to do it in because unlike going to events like at NFT NYC or any of the crypto conferences in Miami, they're so spread out that there's always going to be like 100 other things going on.
Yeah.
Here, it's like the same group of people, even afterwards, like in the small events, like I'm like, oh, wow. Like if something happened in this room right here, like the entire, like 95% of the NFT market is wiped out. You have like the founders from Artifact, you have Ian running
That's
Ledger
really
over
funny.
here, you have Sean from Pixel Vault, you have Lazaro, and you have, Guy Osiri here, you have Gary. I'm like,
and that was one of the amazing things I thought. So I spent Saturday with two of my heroes, Snowfro, who started Art Blocks, and Tyler Hobbs. And those guys I consider in a completely different cultural realm than VeeFriends, right? Art Blocks, generative art, Fidenzas, like this is a really different thing. And they weren't like rolling their eyes. They were like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I was with, with we had lunch on Saturday with the two of them, and I was kind of like watching them. What do they think of this? Right.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is incredible. Like it feels like a crazy family reunion.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an amazing thing that Gary did is he actually did make it home for everyone, not just for VeeFriends. Like VeeFriends was sort of like this catalyst.
Totally.
But I mean, he had everybody from Deepak Chopra to...
I mean, he pulled us all here. We were talking, like, I remember joking about this. Like, yo, he's got Pharrell, he's got Snoop, he's got like Spike Lee, just like an insane amount of people. And they actually showed up to a place that, not a lot of people would, and not a lot of people could get somebody to go to like Minneapolis, right? Like I try all the time for my Vikings games and it's tough enough.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting, like watching that scene, and especially the timing of it. But I think it just shows how much room we still have to grow. And it felt like a lot of people were saying it felt like South by Southwest early on, those
That's
early
exactly
years.
what I said.
Well,
It
to
felt
me,
like early South by Southwest.
Gary was such an instrumental part of South by Southwest in the early days.
Early days of interactive,
internet, early of the interactive.
Interactive,
Like he was he was the one doing his jam sessions and taught his parties. And I remember just sitting in his
morning
apartment.
workouts.
Yeah, like 4 a.m, still talking about like tech. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But like seeing that it's actually quite interesting. Like Gary's even trajectory. Like he obviously was early on YouTube, early on Instagram, and really like made himself this like enormous figure on the internet. And then like a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, it was like Gary's hustle porn. He's pushing all this, that. He then went and started focusing energy on, crypto and NFTs. And like, he just threw like the biggest party of the year, basically, and have a very different perspective because I saw who was there and I was like, oh shit, there's
There's FOMO. And
What was the average age of the non like kind of influencer like people?
Everything. I don't think it was such a wild demographic.
I had a 14-year-old in our booth that knew more about Ledger than people who work for us, right? And his dad, and then, but I would say like, the Ledger area was packed all the time. And I would say people were in their late 20s.
Okay.
If I had to like just, zero in on something.
The other thing
there were people of all ages, but that was kind of where I would say it was.
One reason I think it was really successful too is because it brought like real production and real production value to it. Like I remember going to NFT NYC last year, which is like the first, I'd say like big event post-pandemic where like the NFT community was gathering together. And it was like, look, the scene is so new. There's a lot of like newly minted NFT millionaires and, people worth a lot of money. And the events, the production just wasn't there. Like it's tough to throw an event. And you had like all these new individuals and this new wealth and these like people that don't know how to do, have not done production previously, right? Like it's a skill. Like Gary knows how to do this. So it felt, and even unlike some of the other kind of conferences that are so open and so big that I've been to with like the crypto conferences that just don't have that same energy. It's all about like, oh, money, 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 money. Like this was about culture. And I think like he really put on the best event so far that's happened in the Web3 space.
Definitely.
And
I was gonna say one thing that is, because I had a conversation with Gary on Friday where I was like, man, does this feel like a lot of pressure and responsibility? Because I said, what you're doing is you're kind of bringing people to America 300 years ago. And it is without question the land of opportunity over the long period, over the long haul. It's also really fucking dangerous in the early days, right? And a lot of people died, walking across the US, and it is like that. And
That's interesting.
he, and I think for one thing, that was
What was his response? Because I think
his
that's
response
a
was
great.
absolutely, and that's why I have been, so loud saying, 99% of this shit is gonna go to zero. in every chance I get, and why he wanted to have, Ledger there, and probably Coinbase too, to some degree, because, we represent kind of mature companies that are about keeping people safe and secure, and saying, hey, we've been here a while, we're going to be here a lot longer. And, our whole MO is to keep you safe, so I think he's trying to like keep balance there. But I do think it's a lot of responsibility, and it's like, look, you could do a great job. And what he was saying is like, look, he actually said, I hopefully that just the spirit of what me and the team do is at the forefront, which is, we want to bring positivity into this space. And I said, yeah, well, I was part of producing the Tibetan Freedom Concerts in the 90s, which couldn't have been more, positive mental attitude. At the same time, someone got struck by lightning in RFK Arena, in the middle of a show, and we had to shut the show down. You know what I mean? So like, shit can be dangerous, no matter how much PMA you're rocking. And and that's the fear. It's a big responsibility to carry, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because I didn't even think about that, because it's almost Gary V for a large portion of like kind of the crypto new entrants. It's like the gateway drug. Like, oh, look at the promise of crypto. Then they go down the rabbit hole and they get smoked on Luna. They get smoked on, whatever the next shitcoin is.
Yeah.
And if you dig deeper, and I started having a lot more conversations with people I knew that got into crypto, like kind of post 2018, you start hearing so many like friends of friends, they thought they were going to buy a house and they got wiped. And they thought like this was a life-changing event. And like you said, it's like, there's a lot of scary shit out there.
So on that note, I know people are excited to be there, but basically this is, a much poorer crowd than they were 90 days ago, right? Was the optimism still there from a financial standpoint, or more a community standpoint?
I'll be honest, you didn't really feel that negativity. Like I didn't feel it at all being there.
It was weird, right? I thought the same thing. And like, people were like, oh yeah, we're down a lot. But I mean, like, look, the reality is that, I mean, looking at any market, if you look at any area of collectibles, if you look at the stock market, like, the growth that happened during a pandemic, like the world shuts down and everything goes up. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like on paper, if you were like, hey, the world's going to shut down, but all the markets are going to double, like, something is wrong here. So this correction was 100% on the way going to happen. And that's where I think like it's affected all these other sectors. This is a lot more volatile of a sector without the history to look back on in the data. So I think it makes a lot of people nervous. But in general, like, I did not feel it there. Ian's 100% right. Like,
crazy.
And I think what you'll have is you'll have a consolidation around Bitcoin and Ethereum because of it, right? You'll have, because if you got into Luna and you went from 80 cents to $80 and then you wrote it back down to zero, well, your 3x on Bitcoin from not that long ago to today looks pretty attractive. It's not 100x, but the 3x looks pretty attractive. And, so I think that the Bitcoin and Ethereum narratives just get stronger as a result of this. I
agree.
And that is and so I think the message changes into, buy, hodl, earn, but those are still good messages. I mean, I would genuinely recommend to my friends and family that you kind of dollar cost average on a weekly basis, especially right now. You're going to, with an amount of money, with somewhere between, 1 and 10% of your portfolio, depending on how much risk you want to take on. But, that's the, that kind of, that message is smarter than ever, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think other thing to note is crypto's outperformed growth tech. Like Bitcoin's down 50%, Ethereum's down roughly a little more than that. Facebook's down 40%. Amazon's down 40%. That's big tech. And then you go a layer deeper, you're down 80, 90% on all these stocks. So I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah, no, I think to me, and I think again, and I think there are definitely some things that are not going to be reversed here, right? Algorithmic stable coins are not going to be something that the market takes seriously for some time. And then the regulators are going to look, I mean, it's on. There's no way. I mean, you could. I mean, what happened with Luna will ring in the halls of regulators until they decide what they're going to do with it. They're not going to ignore this. So, but that's the way it's been for me. And I think I've said this on the show before, I mean, Bitcoin is digital gold, Ethereum is digital petrol. Everything else is like an equity anyway, for the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So, maybe one or two of those are going to be, Netflix and Amazon. Most of them won't be. And as long as, if you take that portfolio approach, you're probably going to do well over the long term.
What was the mood around NFTs? Like, obviously we're talking cryptocurrencies. That also has gotten somewhat of a cleansing. Are people like, when I think of what happened last weekend with VeeCon and Gary's kind of platform, to me, it's the modern fan club. And it's a way to just crystallize your membership is owning this NFT. Could it have been done without an NFT? Yeah, it probably wouldn't have been as cool because you have this like digital representation of it. Did that enthusiasm? Obviously, people are excited about Web3. I'm just trying to get a handle on like, what are they exactly excited about?
For me, I think it felt the same, right? Like the same as, that we saw with crypto. People were still bullish. I mean, you saw even with Gary's NFT, like the prices started going down as the conference ended. He goes on stage with Snoop Dogg. They announce they're doing a collaboration and the prices spike up again for the airdrop that everybody that's a VeeFriends holder is going to get, right? You saw,
and then they did this thing with the
Beeple.
ticket where, everyone with a ticket's going to basically get a Beeple or something, right?
100%, yeah.
And the price of the ticket went from 0 to 1 ETH in a few hours.
Exactly.
Wow.
So like he pulled it off, and like seeing the energy and the momentum, like, again, it was great to see like Chris from Artifact, who I've known for so long. It's crazy. He used to design my mixtape covers and stuff. And then he went on like that's why my original stuff and like my MySpace page were sick. Like Chris Lee was doing that. Now he's running Artifact. And like the room was packed when they were sitting there speaking. Like people are still so interested. And again, I think we're in a natural cleansing, but again, flagship projects and flagship stocks, flagship cryptocurrencies are going to do
exactly.
that.
I think just communities, and you said it earlier, and it sounds so cliche, but I think that the thing to recognize here. Look, I've thought this for a long time. We've talked about this before. That I think if you're into kind of mainstream culture, the internet has always been really fucking confusing for you. And you know what I mean? Like if you want kind of everyone to like the same thing, the internet just pushes the physics such the opposite direction that you're always like, I always say, you find yourself a nickel anytime you use the word everybody, because there's just no such thing. Right. And so the reality is like, so you can, and I think too many people, they read the newspaper, they read a story about Bored Apes or whatever. And then that's what they're like, oh, well, that's what NFTs are, which is the equivalent of like listening to Despacito and then making up your mind about music. Generally.
Great song though.
Yeah. I mean, I like, Despacito. Oh yeah. I love music. What? Like, Bored Apes. Yeah. NFTs. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because the reality is like within these smaller communities, I went through last night and put offers on like real offers, multi-$1,000 on like 5 or 6 different dead fellas, because I want a second one. Not a single offer got taken. My offers were all above floor.
Wow.
Right. I was bidding on some that had a little higher rarity, but all of my offers were above floor, didn't get taken. I spent the last week trying to buy some of these particular things from Quantum Art on secondary, putting in real offers, all way above floor, like 5x floor, but on a particular collection, not a single offer got taken.
Wow.
So there are, and so that's the thing is when you go into these communities, you go into the Atom Bomb Squad community, you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if people with paper hands get flushed out of the community, that's great for Bobby.
Yeah.
If people who are just in that community to try to go from 0.25, to 0.75 got like hammered out and like took a 0.2 to get out.
Yeah.
Great for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why I think that, within these little communities, it's like asking like, well, what happens to skateboarding when it's not on TV anymore? Well, skateboarding is better. That's what. Skateboarding is cooler.
Yeah.
It's more fun. People are more fun to hang out with. I mean, for me, like San Francisco 2001 was way cooler than San Francisco 99.
Yeah.
Like San Francisco 99 was bullshit with some like idiot spending, money on another lame party on a Tuesday night. Right.
Yeah.
2001 was like the people that were there for a reason. They
So
were
you're
there-
saying post crash.
post-crash
Right.
was way better.
So
And
when
that's what I
Empire's
always
the
say.
ball.
I mean, like in 1999, I was building digital music apps. 2001, 2002, I was building digital music apps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There were a whole bunch of other people that ran for the hills. Great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's better for everybody else. You know, and guess what? Worked out fine for me. Right. And so will this, you know, but there will be a lot of carnage along the way, just like there was. I mean, you go to Music Tech Meetup in San Francisco in 2000, there were 150 companies there and 148 of them didn't make it. You know, that's evolution, you know, and it's normal. But that doesn't mean there isn't a Spotify and there isn't an Apple Music and there isn't a YouTube. Of course there is.
Yeah.
Obviously there is.
Yeah.
There is a Netflix. And that's the thing is like nobody, I don't, you know, none of your listeners are going to remember Entertainer, Digital Entertainment Network, Starwave. Like we could name, you know, we could name 100 companies that were not Netflix but you couldn't have told the difference between in 1998. They were all there. They were all spending money. It's just, you know, only the strong survive.
That's interesting. And then do you like, when you think it through the lens of like what you guys are doing at Ledger, like is what, like part of what you guys have to do is like educate, right? And I think, you know, I was reading that story about Seth Green.
Yeah.
So people that don't know, Seth Green had an ape. He developed a sitcom or a TV show around the ape. Then someone stole the ape.
Yeah.
So now,
And then sold it. So now he can't technically, he spent all this money on animation and stuff and can't
The
technically
story
use
is
it.
pretty good though. You got to admit, like
Yeah.
now you're just one meta layer out. Now you build the story around,
yeah.
around like getting
Yeah,
the
it's
ape
staged.
back, right?
Because think about how much press this just built for
right.
this show.
Yeah, exactly. No, first of all, it sucks. Second of all, you're right. I mean, education is everything for us. You know, educated people become Ledger customers, right? The way that people find their way to Ledger is they get some value, they get more educated, they become more concerned about security, they buy a Ledger. So everything we're trying to do is to just sort of make that process as short as possible. You know, maybe start with a Ledger and just start safer. But
So like, how do like, I just read this every day. I feel like Discord is like basically where crime begins on Web3.
they should
Like-
try that as a tagline.
Right?
You want to be a criminal? It feels like it's like the back alleys of jail. Because every day I read someone got fished on Discord, and I have, when I'm on Discord and I'm in a chat, I get DM'd 50 times. Hey man, what's going on? And I don't like. It's a scary place.
Totally.
It feels like a very scary
It's
place.
how you also know it's temporary,
Yeah.
right? Like Discord needs to make it so that if I'm a Deadfellas holder, as an example, that, you know, only Deadfellas holders can be members, and they're all using like Collabland, which has its own issues, and now Vulcan, which none of this stuff is easy to use. There are other people who are coming in and trying to build kind of like the next Discord. You know, like Metalink, which the Hundreds and Deadfellas have both started to use, but I got to be honest, like I don't really use them, and I'm a member of both communities. You know, so I think it'll just be something else to come along. I wouldn't bet against Kevin Rose on this one. If I'm Kevin and I've got, you know, in my hand what Kevin has, like Discord would be like right in my rifle sights.
Yeah.
You know, and I would build that. So I think that time handles this. Look, the thing I keep saying is, you know, and I'm sorry that I'm old and I always have these digital music references, but I just remember super well what it was like to do digital music in 1998.
Yeah.
Your computer didn't come with a sound card.
Yeah.
Your sound card didn't come with a speaker.
Yeah.
You know, there was no iTunes, there was no iPod. You
Yeah.
would like literally rip compact discs from the command line, from
Yeah.
the DOS command line, right? And so, but we still did it. And only crazy people did it. But, you know, we had a lot of users at Winamp, like tens of millions of
Yeah,
users.
yeah,
in
I
fact,
was on there in
even
1998,
back then.
yeah.
So it's very similar where you had this critical mass of really passionate people, right? But today we totally take for granted that we open our phones and we just hit play and music comes out. It doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, I
You know,
think
like,
the only
Hey
difference is
Siri, play some Slayer.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too, because I actually hit,
It's 3G.
you know, yeah, exactly. One thing that I was saying is that when,
Okay, here's Slayer on Apple Music.
there we go. One thing I was saying
This
is
is
that
crazy.
like You guys remember the early scams of the internet that was starting to get
3G.
people? It was people going through emails and like, oh, send this
Phishing,
money.
yeah.
I'm the Nigerian prince, blah, 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 like going back and forth through those things. Those things are just happening now in this new realm, and people aren't sophisticated enough, and greed gets the better of everybody, right? That's why, I'm prompted and I have nothing to do with Ledger other than being a fan of Ian and those things. Like I bought my Ledger a couple weeks ago because I'm like, I saw so many people that I know getting phished because of like one little bit that they're trying to get a free mint or getting greedy.
Yeah.
Or like it's tempting. And there's plenty of times I connected my wallet and did. And I was like, why do I have like CryptoPunks and things that have true value? And I'm not like, I don't want to be responsible. Like, let me put it in a ledger and those things. And I think it's like everybody that gets into this space needs to be educated, and it's still so clunky with the tools that are there. Like there's not the protections that are there. It's easy to fall trap to this because there's no examples, people, unless you've been through that. But I know so many people from pro athletes, celebrities that like, and people that are even sophisticated in the space that have been gotten in this, that, and that's one of the key things that I think is going to keep a lot of people away. They hear those stories, and that's why it's so crucial for brands like Ledger and people like that to come in and help secure and protect that space. Because like the last thing, imagine like talking mainstream adoption, I'm thinking my parents trying to get a wallet and like somebody hitting them like
I think it's also
that's when that Margaritaville NFT
hey, this
hits,
is
like,
this is the bank.
that.
Can you send me your seed phase real quick? Like, yeah, sure, here you go.
No joke. I was texting. I'm going to say something that might surprise you on a couple levels. I was texting with Jimmy Buffett yesterday,
No way.
and
That's hot.
What timing?
yeah, and he is actually doing something NFT related at NFT NYC.
Wow.
So I hope I'm not giving away anything too big here.
Wow.
But
I'd buy
actually,
Margaritaville.
hopefully I'm just hyping up Jimmy's thing. He's an amazing
Margaritaville reached
dude.
out to us because we said we wanted to do a Margaritaville tour for group chat.
So that's
Well,
perfect.
So why don't you make it happen?
Yeah, we could make that happen. But I actually think that there's something else here. There really is this big paradigm shift, and it's hard to see because we think like, hey, we all have really, fast, networks and high-speed computers in our pocket, so we should be able to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the reality is that these are Web 2 devices, and I know it sounds like we think our iPhones can do anything, but until they are rebuilt, bottom up with Web 3 and security in mind, they really can't do the protection that you need to hold value on them. Right? It's like if I gave you the task of protecting 1 billion in gold bars in a building. And then I said, oh, and by the way, I'm going to put a shopping mall and a kindergarten and a restaurant on the ground floor, right? You'd be like, wait, do you have to? Like, I'm trying to protect these gold bars, right? But that's what your phone is trying to do. And ultimately, the devices we carry in our pockets will be built ground up with Web3 and security in mind. That will happen. The Apples and Samsungs and Ledgers of the world, will build that device. But the problem is that people they have a hard time getting it's a big change and a big difference that's not obvious, right? They really think like, no, digital values. So I'm just going to get an app just like I do to use, YouTube or Robinhood or whatever. But they don't realize that critical digital assets are truly different. It is much more like a gold bar than your bank account.
Yeah.
And by the way, thank God. Right. I mean, I just spent I had to transfer some money from a French account to an American account. I spent 45 minutes in the bank branch in France. And it was, I wanted to, I don't know. Yeah. It was like an advertisement for cryptocurrency. Right. Yeah. Then yesterday I was trying to buy a mountain bike. Right. But for France, but my credit card is US. And the mountain bike cost more than my monthly limit on my French debit card, right? There's just no way I could do it. I literally spent 90 minutes. The only thing I did was manage to get my French bank account turned off. And then I spent 45 minutes on the phone with the guy to turn it back on. That was really all I got done. And then I called the bike company to see if they're like, no, sorry, we can't help you. It's like, and
we
so,
can't make a sale.
There's no question that this is the future of money and the future of finance, that when you go to the local store and you pay with Apple Pay, that Visa is not doing anything meaningful in the middle of that transaction because we have an instant global settlement network, right? This is just this is a problem that's been solved technically. It just hasn't been solved commercially yet. And by the way, that's exactly where we were. I remember when I was making music on computers in the early 90s and I was a kid and I thought, well, there's probably some reason that like grown-ups don't do this.
Yeah.
Right. But no, the reason was just it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
It was inevitable. It was going to happen. It just hadn't reached everyone that it needed to reach yet. And so it's like these things, it's also why I always tell my team, you know, they really want to, they have this instinct to go out and try to bring people into our world. And I'm like, don't bother. Like they'll come. You know, I remember the people in 1998 who were like, "Oh, I'll never get an email. I'll never have an email address. I don't need one."
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll see you in 10 years, man.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to argue with you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
About I don't want to convince anyone that NFTs are a thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not into it, cool.
Yeah.
Right. I remember you, man.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me that, you know, you were going to listen to compact discs forever.
Yeah.
I remember, dude. Great. I'll see you in 10 fucking years when your passport is a digital document and you need a secure wallet to store it on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remember you too.
I mean, that's
motherfucker.
how I felt. I was fighting everyone every day about crypto for years. And then I was like, you know what? I'm giving up. Fuck this.
Oh,
I'm done.
no.
Just like-
Everyone's going to own it. The question is at what price?
Yeah.
Look, there's
If
early
you
adopters.
prefer to pay more, who am I to stop you? Like,
Yeah.
have a great
Like the
time,
number of
man.
arguments I've had is like, it's not in the hundreds. It's probably in the thousands.
Yeah.
And it's brain damage.
Yeah.
And but that's why for me, like the internet, you know, crypto adoption has followed the internet adoption curve, you know, and again, I remember it super well. I remember what it was like to be the person on the internet pre-web when you like literally couldn't tell anyone because they didn't have the attention span to even, it was like, it would be like walking up to someone and trying to tell them about your Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
club. And they'd just be like,
Good for you.
cool, man.
Yeah.
Having you know, all the way to, you know, again, I mean, imagine how, you know, in the music business, you know, in 2001, 2002, 2000, we did the first day and date digital physical release at the drive-in Relationship at Command. I think we sold 20 copies.
Wow.
Right. And so this is it. This is exactly the same thing. And ultimately Spotify is a very valuable company.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not a meaningless
No.
market cap company. Right. But, you know, as Daniel Johnston said, some things take a long time.
On that note, we're going to get back into the episode, and we're going to have a part 2 of this conversation that's going to come out. Not too sure yet, but we'll let you know when it does.
Okay, we're back. Let's go over just a couple things going on in the world. I think there's just a couple stories that I want to ask you about in particular, Anand.
Yep.
I guess number one, Peter Thiel.
Yep.
There's a couple of boards that just got jumped. So just one we'll mention briefly. Jack Dorsey is exiting the Twitter board. Elon Musk tweeted, "Jack off the board." And then in parentheses of Twitter. So he's out. I mean, that doesn't seem like big news to me. I think this is a good moment. He's probably going to get a little payday here. Good moment for him to move on. He's been kind of checked out, it seems like, for a while. Right? No big news.
Yeah. I think he doesn't want the smoke. I mean, most of the problems were under his control.
Yeah. Okay. So he's out. Good for him. Next up, Peter Thiel, who was, I don't know how much everyone knows this. I mean, Peter Thiel was portrayed in Social Network. He was one of the early, first investors into Facebook. And he was also a huge mentor to Zuckerberg. And I think Zuckerberg really really idolized him when he was super young, starting Facebook. And I think the whole way along, it sounds like he's given him a lot of advice and a lot of advising. He's off the meta board immediately, out of here. What do you think's going on? He's not a big fan of the metaverse. He doesn't like the goggles. What's the problem?
I think Peter Thiel, in his, if you want to call it his third act, first act PayPal, second act investor, that's his third act.
Politician.
Politics.
Yeah.
And he's backing, a bunch of MAGA.
You know what he doesn't like? Common sense gun laws.
No. So
Allegedly.
he's backing some, super alt-right leaning politicians around the country.
Yep.
And I think he's trying to kingmake the country he wants to live in.
Oh yeah.
And he's backing politicians that reflect that.
Yeah. Well, just go start an island, man. You got enough money, go start a little, in tech, they're all about like this kind of testing, minimum viable product, right? Why don't you just try that out with like a small community on an island? Go full alt-right, do all your wild shit. And, if it works, then we'll talk.
This is what's funny is like, he's obviously extremely intelligent, extremely successful, worth billions of dollars. His argument for Trump back in 2016 was politics is broken. Let's burn it all down. That was like, we have a candidate that's not going to follow, the norms of Washington, and he's just going to do whatever the hell he wants to do. Okay. I like kind of heard that argument, but then we saw what happened, and it's like clearly a lot more than that. There's like racial division. There's anti-immigration laws that frankly affect his portfolio companies. Like they're not letting engineers in the country easily. Yeah. And now you're backing candidates in Ohio and all these different states that are super like anti-inclusiveness, anti like racial integration, like take the immigrants out. Like, do you think you just get indoctrinated? Like you started with this burn it all down, and now you're like, fuck it, kick the Mexicans out.
Yeah, I do. Right? Yeah.
That's like,
it's like when they show like the domino. It starts with burn it all down, next kick out all Mexicans. I don't know, man. All I can imagine here is that when you get that successful and rich, like it's really easy to get like to live in fantasy land. Like I see how like a dummy in the middle of nowhere could think like politics is fucked up. Let's burn it all down. Get Trump in there. Like I could see how you would be like, oh, that's how it works. Like he's going to shake it all up and everyone's going to just bow down to Trump. I don't understand how a guy that's that smart could think that plan would work, or could then somehow lean on anti-immigration stances and things that are so extreme and think that like you think that's going to work? You think that that's literally the future of this country and you can make it so? It's wild.
Yes, I think he had to step down because Facebook Meta. I always have to like start with the Facebook and then end with the Meta.
Staples Center.
And yeah, exactly. And then they were probably like, hey, let's just like, peacefully part ways. We don't want this company to be involved with your vision. And that's my suspicion of what happened.
That's your guess? Is that reported, or that's just what you're thinking?
It's not reported. That's, I mean, there's no other reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's a scary guy as far as I'm concerned, because he's way too smart for, that's what scares me. Okay. And then last, we'll end on this. Adam Neumann is back. And not back because, there's a hit TV show about him. He's back because he has just raised $70 million for his new idea. The craziest thing to me is that the money is coming from A16Z.
Yep.
Which those guys are some of the smartest in the game. But he's got you're going to have to explain to me what it is, but I know it's a blockchain backed carbon token. I have no fucking,
it's all fucking nonsense. No one knows what it is. Flow carbon is what it is. Half the money's coming from like tier one VCs, like you said, Andreessen Horowitz, I think General Catalyst, a few other big guns in the game that are highly respected. Good for him. I don't even care. Like honestly, like this guy, I mean, if you don't learn your lesson, like this is like how I felt about the Billy Wang thing. Like if the banks aren't going to do the diligence, it's their fault for letting him rack up like $100 billion of exposure.
True. Yeah, I agree.
And so if he's selling you some bullshit, like, and you're willing to put in, half the capital, I think, is equity invested, and the other half they're doing a token sale. I mean, this is like to back this guy who has zero experience in blockchain, Web3, crypto, anything. He just came up with some fucking crazy concept. Like if you lose all your money and you buy this token, like you deserve it.
You know what else he had no experience in? Commercial real estate.
We saw how that turned out.
Yeah. It's wild, man. I mean, I don't have any problem here, meaning like not upset about it.
I think it's laughable because you have like really talented entrepreneurs that have real businesses that in this climate right now cannot raise a single dollar. And this guy, just in the biggest tech correction we've seen since the dot-com bubble, is shitting on everyone and raised $78 million, whatever.
In a space that like got hit the hardest.
And which he has no experience in. It's not like it's not like the ex Coinbase CTO is like, hey, here's how I envision the blockchain. That person's getting money.
Well, look, I mean, maybe this is a sign that the good times are coming back, you know, because it's these type of banana stories that usually happen when things are good. So, you know, it looks like Ian's optimistic, and obviously A16Z is very optimistic as well.
Yeah.
If nothing else, we'll get another book and another, you know, show. They did a great job with the show, so I'll take another one. Flow Carbon. Give it to me.
I'm invested in the A16Z crypto fund, and I guess now I'm part of the problem.
Oh my God, are you? That came out of your bucket?
I think so. I don't know. We don't get told any of these things.
Congratulations. You're the proud owner of Adam Newman's new dream. Oh my God. Okay. That's all we got. Everyone have a good weekend. I don't know what we can do. I mean, I don't know what to say we can do. Let's, I guess...
call your local representatives, especially if you live in a red state, because we live in California. Our politicians are for gun reform. So, you know, calling our senators and local politicians while just reinforces a message they're already giving. But if you live in Texas, you live in Kentucky, you live in Ohio, you live in any of these states, give a call.
It also seems like there's some GoFundMe's out there. I haven't, you know, had a chance to really take a look yet, but there's a lot of people kind of getting stuff together and doing some stuff. So we'll all take a look at that. And it's a bummer, man. So hopefully things change, but everyone do your best to have a good weekend. Enjoy the holiday. I think most people have the Monday off, so enjoy that. And we'll talk to you very soon.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Peace.